All right, so when we're thinking about two-dimensional arrays, it is not really a grid. It is instead like Cole's pets, right? So if we subdivide it, it's going to be a list of lists, right? So an array is a list. A two-dimensional array is a list of lists, right? So now instead of having just grids, a grid-like design like this, it's really another list in here, right? And the reason that that's important is Cole is very unlikely to have the exact same number of pets in each row, right? Like maybe he only has 4 dogs, and then he's got 27 hamsters, right? So they don't have to be the same size, right? So when they're not the same size, they're called ragged arrays. Okay? So basically that just means that arrays don't have to be of the same length. Okay? So I could have a two item list, a 3-item list, a 3-item list in the same two-dimensional array. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's use what we know about a single dimensional array, right? A 1D array. So if I have a list, right, and I have numbers in there, okay, and I call, right, so what are my indexes here? 0, 1, 2. Why not 1, 2, 3? Because counting in arrays always starts at 0, correct? Okay, so if this was nums, right, and so then I said nums 2, right, what number is that going to return? 7, right, because it is this array, right? Okay, so let's do the same thing, except for, let me do another. So let's do the same thing. We have a list of numbers, but let's say that these are, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but it's just a list of numbers, okay? So I want this to be nums, right? And so I'm going to say int, okay? So int square brace is how I'm going to declare that I want a two-dimensional array, right? And I'm going to call this nums, okay? And then I'm going to set the values to it. So we can do it the same way as we've done before, but I'm going to set the values to it. And when I say int nums, then I'm going to use the curly braces. And you know how like normally we go like 3, 2, 1, right? And set them apart with curly braces. You with me? Okay. So a list of lists works exactly the same thing. So each list, right? So I'm going to have the outside curly braces, right? This one and this one. But then each list is going to be set apart with curly braces, right?
The whole array list is nums.
Yeah. Right, and they're going to have to be the same type. So 7, 3, 1, 5. Okay? So that is I can't.
Yeah, that one has 4.
Right? Oh my gosh, what's happened to me?
Wait, Mr. Kenson, your second.
Okay.
Your first one has 3, but your second one has 4.
Correct, and that's okay, right? That's okay, because it can be a ragged array. They don't have to be even, okay? And then the third one is going to be, let's say 8. Okay? Now, each one of these is an item in the top level, right? So each one of these is a row. This is 0, 1, 2 of the rows, right? 0, 1, 2. And then inside of here, I have another array, right? Another list. And in here, it's 3, 2, 1. And in here, I got 4, so 1. And here I've got 7, 3, 1, 5. And then here, 8, 6, 7, right? You with me? All right. So, help me with this then.
So you can have different lengths, like the 3 numbers compared to the 4?
Yep. It's called a ragged array because it's a list of lists, right? It's not a grid. So if you think about it like a grid, you're going to think they have to be the same length, right? And it's easy to think about a grid because it has the x and the y coordinates, but it is not a grid. It is a list of a list, right? Or it is a list of
So to
lists.
separate this from like a regular array, you have to use two square brackets.
Yep. So, right, so I have, this is how I'm going to declare it, right? So that it knows it is going to be a list of lists of numbers, right? Yeah.
So like for each of the squares or whatever. So yeah, does it start over each time? Like 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Yep.
And do you have to do all integers, or could you do like integer and string?
No, you could not. They all have to be the same data type.
So like, what if you? So you couldn't do like for the soda machine, you couldn't do like the soda name and the price of the soda.
Okay, so that's a great question, and you cannot, right? You'd have to use parallel arrays like we did, right? But you could have a list of sodas, correct? You could have a list of lists of sodas. So the first four, right? So all of the sodas in index 0 would be Sprites. All of the ones in the second one would be Cokes, and all the ones in the third one would be whatever, right? So it could be. So I could have a soda, right? I could have a list of different kinds of sodas. Okay. All right. But let me, not what I meant to do. So let's look at this real quick, and I want to see about this int x down here. Tell me if you can figure this out for me. I'm excited to know if you can. So int x equals nums whoop. Okay, I want y'all to try to figure that out. We're gonna do a nice little chorus call, right? So we're all gonna give that answer at the same time when we get it figured out. Okay, what we think that answer is, right? All right, here we go. You ready? X equals 7, right? X equals 7. You know, can y'all see how? Who's struggling with it? All right, Cole, come on up to the board real quick. I appreciate you being honest about it. No, it's good, because this is like, this is going to be another one of those things where you feel like you get it, and then you're going to walk away and go like, no, it's gone. Okay, so go up to the board. Okay. All right, now tell me what nums 02. Tell me what that points to. Nums 02. So wait, show me the 0 first. 0, good. Okay, so remember that the first one here, is the row, right? So what row is it in? Here, right? And 2 is the column. Okay? So where is it? Yeah, right? Okay, and then do it for the second one. Find the second one for me. Nums, column 2, 6, right? Okay, good. Right? Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe so? All right. So we're gonna build a tic-tac-toe game, right? And that means we're gonna have to have a grid, right? So it will be a 2-dimensional array, but it won't be ragged, right? It's going to be a 3x3 grid, right? Or a list of 3 lists. And how many elements in each list? 3, right? So we create a 9-element grid. Okay? So let's walk through. Let's actually do that real quick together, so we can see if we can figure that out. Okay? All right. Whoop, let me. Oop, wrong way. All right, I'm gonna close out this project, and then we're gonna get a Another project going. If Eclipse will run. All right, but do y'all see how we can still use the same thing that we have? So that base program that we created already, right? And y'all can use mine other than you're going to have a game component on this. It is going to give us the capacity to build out a new thing. So let's go in here and let's just do a quick example of this. And I'm going to give you guys some time to sort of build this up. Let's build a three-dimensional grid, okay? Or I mean a two-dimensional grid. Okay, you ready? So let's think about this. If I have let's do characters in here, right? Characters either a period if there's nothing in it, a X or an O, right? Okay. Let's just build it out without putting anything in there, just as basic as we can. So I'm going to go char, right? Am I good?
No, you need another one.
Right. Okay, good. So I need 2. I'm going to call it grid, and I'm going to say, and then let's go ahead and build it, right? So if for one row, right? hold on there. Okay. For one row, I'm going to put in the information spaced by each char, surrounded by single. Why am I using single quotes?
Because that's a character.
That's how chars work, right? That's how a character works. Okay, that's how we set it apart.
Why can't you just put null instead of a period?
For char, because it's a data type, we could also put a space in there, but I want us to see it. Okay, initially. Now, I'm getting an error there, right? Because this is a one-dimensional array, right? And I want it to be a two-dimensional array. So I need to wrap this in another set of curly braces, right? You with me? So now I want to have 3 identical lists. Okay, so does this make sense?
Yep.
What we're doing here? I want to make sure everybody gets this, right?
Wait,
So
where are all those dots?
do what?
Like, what are those?
That's awesome then.
Yeah,
You mean here? Or here, let me. Yeah, hang on. Right? So these are periods, right? And I'm just using these as a placeholder for each one. So that's each square. Okay? You with me?
Why'd you put it? Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Does it make sense now? So I have my outside list, right, has 3 elements. You with me?
Yep.
Separated by commas. And those elements, just like any other array, are separated by commas, but these elements just happen to be a list itself, right? So it's like Russian stacking dolls. Okay? All right. Yes, no? Questions real quick?
No.
Okay. So now that we have this list, right, I can print this out. But so how would I print out one list? Right, so I could go for int I equals 0, and I'm going to do this as long as I is less than. Let's hard code this so we don't is less than 3, and then I plus plus, right? Okay, and then I can say system.out. And now I'm going to print out grid. So let's say we're just doing one row. So I'm going to say row 0, right? And then each one of these, which is represented now as I.
Wait, what? How's that represented as I?
Okay, I'll show you, right? So I have 3 rows, right? Okay, so row 0, row 1, row 3. or row 2, excuse me, right? When I print this out, I'm saying the first column is, or the first number in the square break
1, 0.
is, so that's the row, right? So grid 0 is the first row. It's the first item in the array. So it's looking at this, right?
Yeah.
So now, so I is going to be 0, 1, 2, right? Each time through the loop, it's going to be 0 first. So it's going to print out the first item in the array. And then I iterates, and so then it prints out the second item in the array. And then I iterates again, and it prints out the third item in the array.
Oh, so each time before the goes, it prints out the next.
Right.
First array.
Right. And so here, what I really should do, right, is put that in there. And let's actually add in a space so that they're a little bit more spaced out, okay? Run it again. There's my 3 dots, right? Just to be clear so that y'all can see this, let's go A, B, C, right? All right, so now it's printing out ABC, right? As I change that. Questions about printing out 1? Because here's where things are going to get kind of wonky.
Wait, why did you put the dots in the first place?
So that you could see it print out something, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You don't seem like you think that makes sense.
I mean, it does, but the whole thing I'm a little confused about.
Okay, tell me, ask a question about it.
Like, what are the blank quotation marks for?
What are the what?
Blank quotation marks for?
Here,
Yeah.
to put a space, if I just take this out and I print it, they're going to be real close together.
Okay.
Okay? So if I put the space in there,
So, like, if those are just placeholders, what's going to be in their place after we do it?
let's make X win, right? Right? Okay. So
How are we gonna know? Sorry.
It's okay.
Like, when you did there, you made X win by putting it in a row. but,
Yeah.
like, how are we gonna know I feel like there's so many combinations of X's and O's. You can do.
Well, not really, right? So you're going to have either it's going to go straight across in one of the rows, down in one of the columns, or diagonally.
Yeah, but like, if neither, is it possible for neither person to win?
Yeah.
What
So we'll talk about how to do that, but the easiest way to do it is just to count how many possible moves can you make before the game's over without a winner.
Okay.
How many spots are there on the grid? 9. So if you're at move 9 and there's not a winner, the game's a draw.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like
Don't
it will
don't
once I keep
yeah. Don't worry about that yet. We don't have to, like right now. Don't focus on the whole game. Focus on this one little part. Remember, that's all we're doing is solving small problems to get to solve big problems, right? But every big problem is just a series of small problems. Always. Okay? All right. So, does everybody see what I've done here with this one loop? Right? So if I wanted to print them all out, right, I could do this, and then do this, right? And then just change this. So remember, Clay, we were talking about the 0 was the first row. So now if I want the second row, right, I'm going to do 1, and then I'm going to do 2 for the third row. Does that make sense? And then in between, I'm going to print out a blank line, right, so that it resets, right? Okay? So now I've got this, and then I've got this. Let's do one more.
Wait, I meant to ask you this a while ago, but why'd you get rid of the L after the print?
Do what?
Why'd you get rid of the L after?
Okay, so print, right? So do you notice when I run this, what happens? So without the ln, it prints the first thing on the same line as the next. Or that's just print. So print line means like print and then hit enter and go to the next line. Okay? So, you'll see what I've done? Look how good I am. I won. Are y'all not impressed? Do I not impress you, Cole? Okay. So, but you see how this works? Okay. Now, what have I told y'all though about copy and paste? You should always be nervous when you start copying and pasting, right? And you should be like, hey, wait a minute. There's probably a better way to do this. Right? Okay. So
use one for loop instead.
You need two. But it's going to be interesting. They're going to be nested, right? Like, you know how you can have an if statement inside another if statement?
Yes.
You can also have a for loop inside a for loop, right? So notice what I'm doing here. Notice how I here is going through like 0 through 0, 1, 2, right, for the column. And then this loop, it's 0, 1, 2. Doesn't that suspiciously look like another loop?
Yes. Why would you make the first one for the
Titles for the.
So you're going like this, like columns, right?
Well, no. That's what I meant. I meant like each individual list is in the first for loop, and then each individual part of the list is in the second one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the internal one, right? So let's think real quickly what that would look like, right? So if I have a list like this, right? And I have my grid. Okay, this is a list of lists, right? And now I have my tic-tac-toe board. So I have an element of a list of 3 items with 3 lists of 3, correct? Y'all with me? Okay, so in this list, right now I have a dot, an x dot x dot, right? You with me? Okay, so when I do this, right, I have 0, 1, 2, and remember this is row centric, which what does that mean? What does row centric mean?
It means it's
Starts with rows. First index.
Yeah, that it's central to the row, that the row is central. So it thinks about the row before the column, okay? So when I do this, keep in mind that I'm going through, right? The numbers are the same, okay? So what do I want to print first? 0, 0, right? And then what? 0, 1, 0, 2. Then what do I want to do? So I'm done with the columns, and now I want to go to the next row, right? So then I want to go 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, and then 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2. Correct? Okay, so let's see how we do that, right? So if I come back in here, and I go back to program this, so I'm doing that here, right? But it's ugly, because I'm repeating the same thing. And so sure, this is fine for tic-tac-toe, but what if I all of a sudden wanted to code, for, what's it called? Connect 4?
Yeah.
Right, now it's a lot more loops, it's a lot more stuff. So I really want to make this automated. So I'm going to get rid of these 2 loops, right? But I want to keep where it prints out everything and then it prints out a blank line. So I'm going to get rid of these 2 for loops. Cool, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, and now inside this, so I'm gonna indent this because there's going to be another loop outside of it, okay? So I'm going to go 4, and actually let's change I to column, okay? Because we're counting the column, so this will help us see that. You with me? Okay, and then now I want to do it for each row, right? So I'm going to go int row equals 0, as long as row is less than 3, right? And then row plus plus. Okay, so now let's watch, let's kind of see if we can figure out what this is going to do, right? So I'm coming here, this for loop runs the row, okay? And then for each row, it's going to run one for the columns. When it finishes any of the columns, it's going to go to the next line, right? So then we can start the next row and it's going to do that. Yes?
Where's the other curly brace for the 4 loop you just finished?
Hang on one second. Let me get rid of that. So this curly brace goes here to this one,
Okay.
and this one goes to here, right? So this, why is this outside of the internal loop? Let's put this in here so that we can see it better, right? I'm going to say end row, okay? Now so I'm going to run this first, Emily, on the inside, okay? Of this for loop. All right?
Okay.
And then let's see what happens. So if I run it, so I get each column, but it's saying end row after each item, but I don't want it to be after each item, right? I only want to end that row when I get to the last column of each row. So this for loop is printing out the element in each row, so I want to just stick this on the outside of it. Oop. And so I still do this, right? I didn't change this, right? So that that 0 needs to be row.
Wait, so now this is going to print out every row and every column?
Yep.
Cool. But you put the space or you put the blank system out and like it just basically
Looks better.
into the-
Yeah. Right?
Wait, could you explain it one more time? 'Cause it's still...
Yeah, no, I know. This is not easy to get your head around the first time. Okay. All right. So if we kind of watch what's happening here, right? I have one for loop. And this iterates over the rows, right? Okay? So that means if I have a list of 3 items, right? And it's 0, 1, 2, right? That row is represented by the variable called row that we create here. Okay? And so that row for the first row is going to be 0, right? Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next row will be 1, and the next row will be 2. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Then on the inside of each of these, I'm in the corner, I can't draw well. And the inside of each of these is a 3-element list, right? For the columns, right? And the index of these are 0, 1, 2, and those are going to be represented by the variable COL for column, right? So when I'm going through this first loop, right? Don't worry about the column right now. When I'm going through the first loop, that row is 0, correct? And then when I go to the next row, this becomes 1, and then the next row, this becomes 2. Does that part make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now that I have that, inside, whenever on each row, I want to print out 3 different elements, right? The elements of the list. 0, 1, 2. You with me yet? Okay. So now if I want to do 0, 1, 2, what I'm going to do is use the column. So when I first go through this outside loop, this inside loop iterates over the columns, right? You with me? Okay. So let's go through it. For int row equals 0, row is less than 3, row plus plus, right? So now I'm inside that first for loop. And before it can loop over, it's going to do this internal for loop, which is going to change the number of the column.
Oh, okay.
So it goes 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. Now I'm at the end of the internal loop, and so it resets the outer loop to row equals 1. And so now it's 1, 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 3. Or I'm sorry, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. Right?
Yeah,
And then it iterates again to the third column or to the third row. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah? No? Yeah? No? Okay. Questions? Comments? Commiserations?
How are we gonna be able to get it to like do tic-tac-toe where like you can put in, like play or not? I guess like mess with the or change the array. It's where like you can like go in like X or O or. Whatever.
Okay, you remember how we had the while loop before in the other game?
Yeah.
Right? So you're gonna have a while loop that's gonna have to begin and go, okay, player 1, what's your move? Right? And then what would they put in?
Either X or O.
So that would be a variable of the player class, right?
Yeah.
Their sign or whatever. What they would say is, I want to put mine, so think about the way that you're doing it. So you have a tic-tac-toe board, right? What do? You say, if I have a tic-tac-toe board, I'm going to say, I'm going to go here, right? And so this is 0, 0, right? And I go, ooh, you think you're being slick. I'm going to go here, right? And that's 2, 2. Right? So all you need to do then is instead of having the player put in the spot, actually write the X, they're going to say, I want to put my symbol in 1, 1, right? And 1, 1 would be here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so each player would put in 2 pieces of data. Column and then the row. Or the row and the column.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? All right. So here's what I want y'all to do. I have given you now the code. And I know that you're not going to be 100% comfortable with it, but I have given you this code. You have seen it. You have seen it work, right? You know that this will print out that, right? You with me? Cool. At your table, write it. Good luck.